It's been 6 months. 6 months of complete silence on this channel. I know some of you may have been wondering what happened. Well, the truth is, this has been shaping up to be one of the worst overall years of my life. I got laid off from my job, my family went through a pretty serious family crisis, and I honestly haven't given YouTube any thought until literally a few days ago. It's been an absolute train wreck, and I have more details to paint a better picture for y'all. But before I dive into that, shout out Black Ops 7, man. Black Ops 7 just launched, and the gameplay you're watching is my very first game of multiplayer. As funny as it sounds, if it wasn't for Black Ops 7, there's a slim chance I'd be uploading right now. I'm a big Call of Duty fan, and making content around it is a big part of my life. And as launch got closer and closer for Black Ops 7, I found myself wanting to get back into the grind again. And I'm having some fun actually for what's playing some of Black Ops 7. I have some content planned, and that all starts with the traditional first gameplay upload. This, what you're watching right now, is my very first game of the official Black Ops 7 game. I'm playing some Uplink, which is a new capture the flag-like mode where there's one EMP that spawns in the middle of the map, and each team needs to fight to deliver it to each other's spawn to score points. The map's name, I believe, is Scar, which left some positive first impressions on me. Gives me a lot of Black Ops 2 vibes. And while I didn't do great, I didn't do terrible, especially for my first game of not just Black Ops 7, my first game of Call of Duty since the beta for sure. And I haven't played Call of Duty, or at least multiplayer, months before that due to the whole situation I've been going through this year. I just gotta say this real quick. I felt like I couldn't aim half the time in this gameplay, so pardon the newbiness. It's, again, due to me not playing COD in forever. I don't know if they changed something in Black Ops 7, but I feel like I need to go in and dial in my settings, which I recall having a similar feeling during the Black Ops 7 beta, and I need to dial in a different sensitivity or something. But I don't remember, and unfortunately the settings don't transfer from the beta into Black Ops 7, which sucks, so I have to do all that again. But anyway, I'm excited to play some more Black Ops 7. I had no interest until the beta, and I wasn't even considering getting it at release given my situation, but multiplayer felt nice, and I hope that's still the case. And that's typically about all I'd say for my first gameplay video, but now's the time to tell you the brutal truth about this year. So the last time I uploaded, which was the Season 4 Battle Pass video, it actually was ironically when everything started to go downhill. The week prior to that video, I had just got my car back after it being in and out of the shop for 4 weeks. It was having some major electrical computer issues that the dealer couldn't figure out. After working directly with the manufacturer, they actually thought they fixed it twice. I remember one time I was driving out the lot after they said they fixed it, and all 12 lights came on my dashboard. It was like a comedy sketch where I was about to pull out the lot and I just backed the car right back up into the garage. I was driving a loaner car for a lot of that time. They finally got it fixed. But the only reason I'm sharing that is because this cost me $3K, which didn't sting at the time, but hurt a couple weeks later when I lost my primary source of income. Fast forward to early June, we had this meeting at my work on the calendar for a few weeks now that no one knew what it was for, which wasn't out of the ordinary. We've had a few of these before, and they're for team-wide meetings and things like that. But it was interesting finding out later that my boss didn't even know what this meeting was for, because the higher-ups at the company went around them, and they found out the news just after I found out positions were being eliminated at the company. But yeah, I was working, corporate for 7 years at this one place, and HR came down one afternoon, didn't really think anything of it, didn't even know it was HR at the time. And then as soon as I and another team member got to the meeting room, I knew exactly where things were going. I didn't know if I was safe or on the chopping block, but it ended up being that my role was one of many that were being eliminated. I want to keep this as brief as possible for the sake of time because there's so much more ground to cover in this video, but I'm very confident in saying that the decision had nothing to do with my work. From what I know, it was due to the state of the economy and the business and management itself, essentially. And come to find out, there were more layoffs after that. But I was not to be cocky, but I was a fairly valuable asset kind of at that company. But the cherry, get this, the cherry on top at this point in time was that this didn't just happen after I forked over $3,000 for my car. This was also 3 days after I re-signed and locked in my lease for another year. The timing of everything happened, it was just absolutely phenomenal. I gotta tell you. From there, I had to figure out all the aspects of offboarding or figuring out if I'm moving laterally within the company or separating, continuing my lease. I had to figure out unemployment and handle all that stuff for like a solid 2 to 3 weeks. And while I dealt with that, I needed to update my resume, my portfolio website, create new demo reels since there's been 7 years of dust piling on all that. I haven't touched my resume since I graduated college. It took me 4 to 6 weeks to, get all my application materials to a point where I could start applying for new jobs, because in this job market, you don't want to apply with an inadequate resume or a chopped portfolio, because that could get you blacklisted via automation for like the rest of your life. So it's better to do things proper. Once I was applying, it was another like 1 to 2 months of all my days consisting of fleshing out my portfolio and polishing on my materials to make sure I was presenting the best work possible. And then, in the midst of all of that, I had another curveball thrown my way over the 4th of July. I was visiting my dad across the country, and we got a call. And for now, I'll just say we had a near death in the family that really shook things up and disrupted life. It was some pretty serious and frightening shit, but thankfully nothing bad came of it. There's definitely a whole lot of trauma and mental pressure, but physically, everything is okay. Trying to process everything and be there for people and it was a lot to deal with. But circling back to YouTube, with the timing of how everything played out, I was able to start applying for a few jobs 2 months after being laid off, but it wasn't until 3 months in when I was able to start applying daily. And properly finding a job is a full-time job, if not more, in itself. I'm 5 months in right now with around 150 applications. I've spoken in some sort of capacity with about 20 different companies. Not all of those are interviews. Some are phone screens, some of which we've determined it's not what I was looking for or not what the company was looking for. Some of those were one-way interviews, one of which I was clearly qualified for, not underqualified or overqualified for, perfectly qualified for, but met with rejection. Never actually spoke with an actual human being. It was a weird experience. And there was one specific job recently where I was clearly qualified for, but got rejected, and it looked like an auto rejecting based off of a specific wording and like misinterpretation from whatever system they were using. That was after I crafted my resume to match all the wording. Weird process, throwing all the ghosting. It's been a hell of a ride. But I've had some quality multi-stage interviews with some cool people, some cool companies, but ultimately they just didn't go all the way. And actually, I should add, I'll brief you on a crazy story right now. My job search is nationwide because what I do and where I'm at right now, like physically location-wise, it doesn't have the most opportunity outside of freelance and contract work. And I'm looking for stable, long-term employment in an area where there's opportunity if I end up needing to search again. But this one company had this atypical interview process. It was very fast. I applied and then interviewed twice and had an offer all within 2 weeks. Under 2 weeks. They ended up flying me halfway across the country for the second interview. And again, this is a crazy story. I could do a 2-hour podcast about this experience. But long story short, they had an atypical interview process. I was going along with it because, I don't know, maybe that's just how they do things, and we'll see where this all goes. But I had a lot of questions as I went throughout the entire process, and I'd ask some questions, and 80% of those questions would be dodged, or they'd tell me they'd answer those questions in a later process. Fast forward, I was doing my onboarding for the company and going through paperwork and going through the company handbook. I was actively signing documents, but not the documents that I had specific questions on. So I emailed a list of my questions that I've been asking and some new questions and concerns I had. And they were fairly basic questions. They included questions about, tax forms and specifics about PTO and healthcare and retirement. things that you usually know at this point in the hiring process and is transparent internally within the companies, at least for companies that I've worked at previously. And a lot of the info I was asking about, I see listed on company websites, like publicly, or they share a spreadsheet, or they tell you them early on in the interview process. So I sent those questions, and then hours later, I was met with after much consideration, we decided to go with another candidate email. The full story is crazy, and I have even more stories from the last several months that I can share in the future if that's of interest for anyone. Just with all the shenanigans happening in the U.S. job market right now, it's been a roller coaster of an experience filled with uncertainty and stress. Hopefully, I'll land something soon. I'm spending anywhere from like 2 to 10 hours a day searching for jobs and filling out applications. It is completely soul crushing, and doing all that on top of managing day-to-day life, which includes some freelance work. YouTube hasn't been a priority whatsoever. I've barely had time to game in itself, but I've missed this. I've missed speaking into this mic. I've missed, creating content. And I've missed playing games, man. I just want to be stress-free and play some games, man. But as for the future of the channel, I'm not going to make any crazy promises. I do have some content planned through the remainder of the year, time allowing. Hopefully, I'll land a job and can get back to creating at a normal schedule. It's not full time, but if you watch, but the passion is back. I want to explore Black Ops 7. I want to share my findings. I want some bit of certainty in my life right now, which YouTube allows to some degree. So, thank you for being patient with me and hearing me out. Thank you for tuning into this video. If you're new here, maybe subscribe to see if I can actually get good at this game again and not whiff shots every other gunfight. And for everyone, leave a comment, say hi, tell me what you've been up to over the last 6 months, or if you've gone through something similar. I have a bunch of stories to tell from over the last several months. If you are interested, let me know in the comments, and if I do end up sharing them, you'll be able to click through to hear them right now. Otherwise, you can check out more Black Ops 7 content, including worst to best, which I do have works in the screen, and they'll be popping up when they're ready on the screen right now. Thank you so much for watching, guys. My name's D, and I'll catch you in the next one.